Hi, I'm Senator Rick Scott, and this is The Elephant in the Room.
Welcome to The Elephant in the Room. I'm your host, Cyrus Pearson.
I'm your co-host, Sophie Delkay.
We just had an interview with U.S. Senator Rick Scott of Florida, and there was a lot in there that you just don't hear about. Sophie, what are some of the things that come to mind?
I mean, it's pretty remarkable that you don't realize, or people don't know, that he just started with nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, he grew up,
Really?
very low income and has hit, I would say, the pinnacle of success.
Better than I could possibly hope to do.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and hear about that in detail. Here we go. You good, Sophie?
In
I'm good.
Inglés o
I actually
Español?
turn these on.
Ooh.
I mean, think about it. It's Florida.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
about 20% of the people in Florida speak Spanish as their primary language.
I didn't know it was that high.
About 15% of the voters. So if I had not won the Hispanic vote, I wouldn't be up here.
Yeah.
Now, you come in here, if we could just continue with the conversation.
Yeah.
You come in here and you do, I would say, almost half your messages in Spanish. When did you start learning Spanish?
Well, growing up, you always took it, but you didn't speak it. So after I won in 10, I said, I'm going to speak it. So I just started practicing. I practice every day. I've always had a Hispanic press secretary. And so when I was governor, I traveled to 2 cities a day, 5 days a week for 8 years.
Wow.
And I tried to do as many of my events. If they weren't at Hispanic business or school or something like that, I did part in Spanish. And so people appreciate it.
Yeah.
And our biggest trading partner is Latin America.
Yeah, you're kind of ahead of the curve there because that's been something that's been talked about. And obviously the different communities are different. I mean, Mexico's not the same as like Chile or anything like that. But for you to get
We're a
ahead
good
of
melting
that.
pot. Florida's a pretty good melting pot because we've got, even my office is like this. We have people from Puerto Rico. First of all, people forget that Puerto Ricans are actually Americans. But we've got people from Haiti, from Brazil, from Colombia, from Panama, from Venezuela.
Few Cubans.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a lot of Cubans. Yeah. Cubans, it's not even half of the Hispanics in our state.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, your Spanish has come a long way, actually.
Yeah,
and
I practice every day.
getting better.
Wow. I tried to learn. It was tough.
You just have to go speak it.
I know.
You have to speak it because if you speak it, you learn it. So, 20% de personas en nuestro estado hablan español. It's muy importante para todos. So,
Great.
It's a beautiful language.
It
by the way.
is.
Yeah. I actually went down to Argentina to study Spanish for a little while.
Oh, did you?
But that was years ago, and if you don't use it, you lose it. But I
Yeah.
guess you have the opportunity to use it a lot.
I use it every day.
Yeah.
And I practice every day.
So how do you practice every day?
Oh, so first off, I practice with my Hispanic press secretary every day for about 20 minutes, and then I practice on my own about 20 minutes with a website.
So
I use Duolingo.
Oh, and you just have a conversation for 20 minutes with her.
Yeah, we go through. We do 2 different ways. One, I have I have a question answer. So I have if we're going to talk about what's going on with the president of Colombia, I generally know what I'm going to say, and so we write it down and I practice it. And so we both practice. I make sure my pronunciation is right. That's one, and 2, I can answer the question.
Well, muy bueno, Senador.
So I probably do 5 interviews in Spanish a week.
Wow.
Television,
You.
Univision, and then the Hispanic radio in Florida is primarily based on, like, there's Puerto Rican, or there's Venezuelan, or there's Colombian, but not perfectly, but a lot of that.
There is a lot we don't know about you for somebody who's been in the public eye for so long. And these interviews that you do, they're asking you a question in Spanish and you're answering in Spanish.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
Very.
The way I wanted to start this, you're basically a man who has ticked almost every box when it comes to the opportunities America offers and that people can take advantage of. We're talking educational, economic, social, entrepreneurship, and we've just got so many things that
I've tried it all.
Yeah.
My poor wife.
I'm not even sure where we should start. I think when people think of you, they think of this successful politician who used to be a businessman. But when you look even further back as a kid, you weren't that well off.
I was born to a single mom. I lived in public housing early on, but she was pretty tough. She said, you're going to be an Eagle Scout. You're going to make straight A's. You're going to be go to church all the time. I went to church all the time. And she said, get out of the house and make money. I told my 7-year-old grandson the other day, I said, Eli, so I said, what's your job? I said, I was working when I was 7. Don't you have a job?
I love it.
So I think every kid ought to be working. I think it's good for you.
We have down here from the age of 4, you would walk to school by yourself?
So here's what happened. We lived in public housing.
Okay.
And so my brother, I have an older brother that's 2 years older. And so the first day of my kindergarten, I walked to school with him, but he wouldn't walk back with me.
Oh, no.
Because he was a big shot.
Yeah.
That was
That's how it
okay.
works.
I didn't realize we were in this public housing where there's all these different complexes.
Yeah.
My mom wouldn't let us leave this one little area. So I knew our apartment was in this corner. I didn't know there was rows and rows and rows. It took me forever to find my apartment.
Because they all
I'd
look the
go
same?
knock on the door because it was all the same. And so it took forever to find. After that I figured it out. But the first day, look at how the world's changed though.
Oh, my
to live in
goodness.
public housing and at 4 years old walk to school and home by yourself.
I know we're in a different era, but I have a daughter who just turned 5, and I honestly, I won't let her go biking alone.
No.
That
the
is
thing's,
amazing.
it's just the world's completely changed. But
Yeah.
no, I had a tough as nails mom. I thought she was tough. But it was very beneficial. She eventually remarried to a wonderful man. He had a 6th grade education. He was a bus driver, so I assume that's how they met,
Okay.
on the bus. And he eventually became a truck driver. But he did there's 3,000 people did all 4 combat jumps with the 82nd Airborne. He did that, survived, and fought in the Battle of the Bulge. He thinks, he's not alive, but he thinks 8 out of 80 people went over with him alive, came back.
Wow.
That is one tough son of a gun. The Battle of the Bulge, if you look it up, it was the largest and bloodiest single battle fought by the U.S. in World War II and the 3rd deadliest campaign in American history. So for him to survive all those jumps and that's...
So I'll tell you a neat day.
Yeah.
One of the neatest days of my life is my then 20-year-old daughter was in St. Mary-Glace, which is right by Normandy, where the 82nd Airborne parachuted in the morning of D-Day. Mm-hmm. And so she found, there was a museum there of the 82nd Airborne. She found a picture of her grandfather, his company.
Oh, wow.
17% of his company died right there.
Oh, my goodness.
So she was able, he would never go back to Europe. She was able to call her grandfather and say she found a picture of him.
Wow.
That's
That's
a neat day.
amazing.
That's a pretty neat day, right?
That is super neat.
That is super
Now,
amazing.
we are going to be releasing this around Independence Day, 4th of July. Do you want to take this chance to kind of talk about, what that means to you?
Well, growing up within my adopted dad loved his service. He loved being in the U.S. Army. He did tell me the Germans were bad, the foxholes were bad, the food was bad, so that's why I joined the Navy. But I'm very appreciative, and I've Ann and I are blessed. We got married at 19. We have 7 grandkids. The oldest is he's clearly going to be in the service, so I take him to battlefields. We're going to Gettysburg in August. But I'll tell you a neat day. We were down in Naples where I live, and we took him to a military museum. And at 4 years old, I didn't realize he already knew the Pledge of Allegiance. They gave him a sticker if he could say the Pledge of Allegiance, and he did.
Oh, how cute.
Isn't that fun?
That is
Yeah.
really fun.
So I'm very appreciative of that people have been willing to serve, and that we have the liberties we have.
Yeah.
So I'm very appreciative.
How was your time in service?
So it was great. I joined at 18 years old, and went to. I don't like cold, and so I got.
You're not alone.
I got sent to. There's a reason I live in Florida. I got sent to Great Lakes, which is north of Chicago,
Oh, my goodness.
from September to finish radar school.
The
was April,
coldest
the coldest time.
month.
Oh, no.
And so, but I served on the ship, USS Glover, and I was a radarman, but I really swabbed the decks a lot and cleaned the latrines and served the mess decks. So I knew how to do all the stuff, my job, but mostly I did swab the decks, clean the latrines, and serve the mess deck.
Somebody had to.
Well, you know what? I tested out of a lot of school. Back then you didn't have internet, but you could do correspondence courses. So I did a lot of that. I tested out about a third of college that way. And the day I passed calculus that the way That way they sent me to the mess decks to put me in my place.
Wow.
But it's fun.
Right.
I had a great deal. Got the GI Bill. It was a great deal.
So there's so many different directions we could go. Let's talk about something else they didn't have besides the internet. They didn't have TV guides online that you could look up. I think you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, that's why I told my 7-year-old grandson. So back then, TV guides before they were sold in grocery stores, and you guys had probably never bought one, but they were sold door to door.
I did not know that. I remember the grocery stores, little booklets.
Yeah,
and
I do
pick
too.
that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know this.
They were 15 cents.
Okay.
And I made 4 cents a copy. So after school, I would go sell 50 a week. And so I made $2 a week. I was rich. I had more money than any other kid in my neighborhood.
And how old were you when
I
you
was
did
7.
this? Wow. Did you come up with this idea?
No, my older brother did it, and he got tired of doing it, and so I was committed not to be broke.
Yeah.
Boy Scout camp. What I did to get to go to Boy Scout camp, we sell potato chips door to door. I sold potato chips door to door. I sold light bulbs door to door because I had to make a profit to be able to pay for to go to Boy Scout camp. So
This might be a hard question, but is this just an innate quality you had? I mean, since 4 or 7? I mean,
I
some
love
kids
selling
don't
stuff.
know what money is.
First off, I love talking. I love talking to people and listening to their stories, and I love selling things. So I think all the business so I did that. I worked in grocery stores all through high school and college. I worked in gas stations. I worked at car washes. Every type of job I had, and the worst job.
Yeah?
Do you guys even remember telephone booths?
Yes.
They're bad.
Yes.
They're filthy. Got paid $5 at a telephone booth to clean them. They're filthy. It's the worst job. It's worse
Wow.
than latrines in the service, I think. But then I bought after I got out of the Navy, I bought a donut shop. My wife and I did, and so my mom could have a job because she was unemployed, and my dad was disabled by then. And then I built the biggest hospital company. Do you have a Corvette?
And I'm sorry to disappoint you now. I don't.
I probably made your outer body. If you have a Toyota Tacoma, I made your truck bed. If you have a John Deere International Harvester tractor, I probably made your chain.
Wait a sec. You're just going on. See, this is the problem. There's just too much going on to even keep track of.
It's
Oh.
incredible.
What did you...
I learned how to borrow money, and I learned how to, I had a ball. I get to build all these businesses.
I'll tell you what I had at 7. I had a little sleeveless muscle shirt with no muscles in a car that said Corvette, and that's as close as I've
you got
been.
to. Yeah, I don't worry. I didn't have
How
one
did you
either.
get involved with Corvettes, and what did you design?
So what it was it's a the outer body Corvette has one of the nicest, if not the nicest, paint jobs of any car in the country.
I mean, they're
or in the
sexy.
world. Their
Yeah.
paint job is actually, they have higher standards than any other company we dealt with. But what it is, it's a glass and plastic product. It's a log about 2 feet long.
Okay.
maybe, and you put it in these gigantic presses, and the heat of the press will press it out. So we did the outer bodies of things like the F-150, the Corvette. We did truck beds. We did all sorts of things. So I built that company up, and then I also did one in. I did a roll up, which is bought a bunch of companies put together. Did one for the chassis for towable recreational vehicles. We became the biggest in that. I had the biggest industrial chain manufacturer. Some chains were a mile long, by the way.
You're blowing my mind here because
incredible.
you got
It's
TV
fun.
guides. And
You should get in the business.
Yeah, well, I would love to. I might need a little mentoring. But how did you go from a donut shop to knowing that you could do this?
So, who knew that I could do it? Right?
I didn't.
just went and did it.
Okay.
So here's what I did. I went from the donut shop then I finished. I went to law school, and I was a transaction lawyer. I was the transaction lawyer in the biggest law firm in Dallas. So I learned how to buy companies and finance companies.
Oh.
And so I did that, and then on the side, as I was a lawyer partner at the largest law firm, I raised $6 billion to make an unsolicited offer to buy the biggest hospital company in the country. That was interesting, especially because my firm represented the company, which I didn't know at the time. So
Oh.
they all read about it in the Wall Street Journal. That was a
Okay.
fun day. You
Oh
can
gosh.
but that didn't actually work out. I didn't get that deal done. But
Okay.
then I just quit. And my first day trying to get in the hospital business was the day the market crashed 500 points.
Oh.
So I did that, and then I built that company from me to 9 years later. 1 out of every 400 people in America had job work there. I had 285,000 employees.
Wow.
And then I quit that, and then I bought. Let's see, I just bought a variety of manufacturing companies, and I would hire great management teams, and then I would roll them up to get into bigger companies, and we would find synergies, and then eventually somebody wanted to pay me too much money for them.
I think it's really incredible. What a lot of people don't know is that you really came from nothing.
Yeah.
And you have been such a success story, not only just obviously in your businesses over your life, but then 2 terms as a governor and now a United States senator. I mean, it really is the embodiment of the American dream.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. So I decided I wanted to run for governor, and so I've been married since I was 19. So I do everything with my wife, and I plan on staying married the rest of my life.
Wonderful.
So I said, Ann, I'd like to run for governor. She said, that's great. I don't ever want to give a public speech because I'm scared to death of public speaking. I said, no way, you never have to. It lasted about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I didn't ask her. Somebody from the campaign did. But we shouldn't, no one thought we could win. I ran in the Republican primary against the sitting attorney general, and the polls said I would lose by 11. 2 days before, I won by 4.5. Then all the polls said I'd lose the general, and we were one. And we were able to turn Florida around, and then everybody said I couldn't win the Senate seat. So, and I think I'm the only Republican that won the swing state in 18. So it was a hard year for us, but we were able to do it. So it's been fun.
You really started the turnaround of the state.
So here's what happened. Florida is still to this day is really tied to tourism, and it's really still tied to home sales.
Okay.
And when I started running, or when I won the election, November of 2010, 1.1 million homes were in foreclosure. We had lost 832,000 jobs in 4 years. Home prices had dropped in half. More people left Florida than moved in 2010. It was just a disaster. People thought, we'll never turn the state around. We always had good weather, but so I ran on a plan to get 700,000 jobs. Every economist said we wouldn't get 700,000 jobs. We wouldn't have single-digit unemployment, and if I had won a second term. And at the end of 8 years, we didn't do 700,000 jobs. The private sector did 1.7 million jobs.
Wow.
Unemployment was down to 3.3%. The state had only lived within its means 1 year in 40 years.
Wow.
And the last 20 years before I got elected had borrowed an additional $1 billion a year for 20 straight years and was going into default on its debt. It was a ball. We got to turn the whole state around.
It's incredible.
Yeah. And now by the time I finished, everybody wanted to live there.
And to put it into context, I mean, it's not just that the unemployment rate dropped down to 3.3%, but it dropped from 11.
Yeah.
And what I have here is you paid down $10 billion in state debt.
They'd increased the debt every year. And so we paid off $10.5 billion. I cut over $10 billion of taxes. I cut taxes and fees 100 times. So we just, here's what I did. I did what I did in business. In business, I did a budget, right? So I think most families have to do a budget because there's a lot of wants, but if you don't have enough money, you can't do it. So I did a budget. There's 4,000 lines to the Florida budget. I had a written purpose for every line. If you didn't make your purpose, I vetoed your money.
Wow.
Also focused everybody. This is what you had to do. I'll tell you I could tell you a story about every agency, but I'll give you one agency. So I ran my whole campaign in 10 about getting people a job, my whole campaign. So I won the election because I think people said, I don't know that guy, but he's going to get me a job. That was the whole election. So I go to there, I start going to every agency and actually do what I did in business. I just go get information, see how you can fix it. Unemployment. I go there, I'm governor 2 or 3 weeks. I said, how's it going? They said, well, Governor, we're open 6 days a week because unemployed Floridians don't have enough time to apply for unemployment during the week. Wait a minute, that seems weird. So I said, let me ask you a question. If you go on unemployment, do you have to do anything? They said, well, yeah, you're supposed to apply for 5 jobs a week. I said, how's that going? Well, we don't enforce it. I said, it's really? I said, how many people are on unemployment? They said, almost 1 million. I said, if you were on unemployment and you got a job, would you prosecute them for fraud because they took your money? Well, no. I said, I read the story that you could be in prison and get unemployment benefits. They said, well, yeah. I said, we run the prison system. So I said, here's the deal. Starting today, we're going to enforce the law. All right? So we went from almost 1 million people on unemployment to when I left, out of 22 million people, we had 61,000 people on unemployment. We kicked nobody off. We said, what's your issue? Some people didn't have the right education. Some people didn't have the right housing. Some people didn't have the child care. So, but there's a government program for everything. So we just went and started solving people's problems. It was fun.
And it worked.
Yeah, it worked. It's fun.
Can the stuff you did in Florida be enacted on a federal level to fix these issues? And if not, what is the blockade? What's in the way?
You can. It's, look, it's you. Why are there successful business people and not successful? Because some people are willing to do everything it takes to succeed, and they're willing to measure the living daylights out of yourself. So when I had 343 hospitals, every hospital, every month, they got a report card. What number you want to be? I'd like to be number one. All right. And so he told people, so whatever we were looking at, patient quality or mission growth or patient satisfaction, we ranked all of them.
Okay.
You've got to do the same thing in government. You've got to say, okay, this is my purpose, right? And in a business, you don't say, okay, I'm going to do everything, right? You say, this is what I do. Like when I was governor, I said, we're going to do 3 things really well. Get people a job, get their kids a better education, and make sure people are safe. That's what people want. So up here, it's hard, but what we've got to do is we got to start measuring success and having a purpose for everything we do.
It's almost like politicians are better when they've, done it themselves before.
Yeah.
Politics.
Can I give you? So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Have you ever met anybody that's ever lost $1 trillion in 1 year?
Not that I'm aware of.
Have you ever met Jay Powell?
Yes, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jay Powell.
That's what they did. He made this decision to go buy all these treasuries and government-backed bonds, and then he raised the interest rate. When you raise the interest rate, the value of a bond goes down. $1.2 trillion in 1 year.
Wow.
And so how do you think that you could grow our debt faster than our GDP and there's no ramifications?
Of course not.
We've done that since Biden took office.
Right.
21, 22, and so far 23. Our debt in this country has grown faster than our GDP.
Yeah.
So we got to start doing. We have to do this stuff.
Yeah.
You know who's getting hurt the most? It's people like my mom. It's grocery prices are up. So who's that impact the most? The poorest family, not the rich. Gas prices, the poorest family, not the rich. Rent, poorest families, not the rich. And so that's who's getting creamed with this inflation.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is an issue that you're very vocal about is, the inflationary spending, the inflation that families are feeling all over the country. And like you said, it completely disproportionately affects low-income families. It's sad. It's disheartening. It's, and you always say we've got to get it under control.
I always think about my job is if I make sure that kids like me growing up have every chance to do whatever they want to do, everybody else is going to be in pretty good shape. And so when I was governor, it's harder to do than the Senate, but I would go to schools and I'd start off saying, hey, you guys know your dad? I don't. They're shocked. All right. They said, I went to junior college. Right? I didn't go to college first. I went to junior college. I couldn't afford college. They said, I've worked since I was a little kid. And so how many of you live in public housing? And so I said, so you can be, if I can be the governor, you can be the governor. So in about 30 years, every kid in Florida is going to be the governor. I talked to every kid in the running.
Change the whole system?
Yeah, because you got to give these kids hope.
Well, let's talk about some practical advice and maybe some inspiration out here because, there are a lot of us who wanted to do things, and even reading about your dad, I'd like to talk about, he's a hardworking guy, right?
Yeah. He's a really good person.
He never achieved the financial independence where he could be home to spend that much time. What's the difference between what he did and what could have given him that life?
I always feel sorry for my dad because he was a good person. He was hardworking. Truck drivers now they're paid pretty well. Back then they weren't. They were a dime a dozen because he didn't have an education. I tell all these kids when I go to schools, you have to get a good education.
Okay.
And you have to start working in a job and keep moving up. Right. And so I think my mom gave me hope that I could do anything. She told me go try it. I used to tell my daughters, you cannot make as many mistakes as I made because you'll never try probably as many things as I had to try to get where I wanted to go. So you got to have somebody in your life, whether it's a parent or somebody that really gives you hope that you can be anything. And then you got to get a good education, and then you got to go just bust your butt.
Do you not
I've won my races because I outworked my opponents.
Do you not have a fear of failure, or did your mom scare that out of you?
I'm not. I mean, the way I've thought about it is, so when I'm 90 years old, I don't want to say, "Gosh, I should have tried that." So I've done my life in sort of 10-year increments, and so I think you should go try. And it all works because what you learned over here applies over here. What I learned in building a business actually helped me become a better governor. And actually, running businesses, I can tell you, I mean, businesses are just so tired of government. They don't help you build a business. They're just a pain in the butt. I mean, the permitting, the regulatory environment. I mean, just golly, just why don't you be nice to businesses? They actually do create the jobs.
Don't have to convince me.
It's true.
Let's talk. If there's a young kid out there, they want to become a business person. What's a practical step they can take, or what kind of blueprint would you lay out for them?
What I would say is, first off, you got to go to work for somebody that's really busy.
Okay.
If you don't, you're not going to get to do anything. All right, that's number one. Number two, somebody that it cares about your success, not just theirs. Number three, you've got to learn how to manage people. If you can't manage people, you can't get anywhere because you can't leverage yourself. And so I think it's important to read a lot. So I give a lot of books away.
Okay.
If I find a good book, I've probably given 10,000 copies of How to Win Friends and Influence People away.
Okay.
So because I think it's a good blueprint for if you treat people well. I mean, it's not perfect, but generally, it always pays off. I think that you've got to be very goal oriented, and then just bust your butt every day, outwork everybody. I like working.
How to Win Friends and Influence People. That was written a long time ago. I mean, is that about 100 years, give or take? I think 10 or 20?
I think it was written like in 1931. I think it was written during the Depression. Yeah, something like that.
And we're in an era where it's Twitter and Instagram and AI, but what you're talking about and have the whole time is that human connection.
Yeah,
these things still apply.
I won my race in 18, right, which is a horrible year, because I had shaken hands with 500,000 people.
Whoa.
So every day, basically, I shook hands as governor with about 500 people. So I did 2 cities a day. I did events all day long. I invited everybody and their brother to the governor's mansion. I don't care what party you were. I try to invite everybody to the governor's mansion. And you get everything you get done is with a person. And if they don't trust you, it will not get done, right? You can't do a deal, right?
Yeah, obviously.
So everything is with another person. So it's fun. I learned how to, not that I was great at it, but you have to become a good salesperson. If you're selling a service or if you're selling a product, you got to sell.
Well, speaking of selling, sir, we'd love to hear more about your state and about Florida, and what makes Florida a great place to live, to visit.
Well, I like Florida because the people, right? Mm-hmm. So what do we get in Florida? So if you look around our state, we've gotten the best and brightest from Latin America, because they've left, the socialism and communism around there. So we just get unbelievable energy of people, the best and the brightest from Latin America. So we get that all across our state. You look at Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico's had problems. We get the best and brightest people from Puerto Rico. And then we've gotten people that have come to our state from other states because they want more opportunity. They know, they might like our warm weather, but they like less regulation, an easier permitting process, less taxes, smaller government, and so because it gives them more opportunity to do what they want to do. So what do you end up with? You end up with these energetic, hardworking people. Some of them might build a business. Some of them might be great chefs. Some of them might want great tourism experiences. So I think that we got a lot of natural beauty, but every state does. But so we have that. But I think we have just wonderful people. Mm-hmm. It's a great melting pot.
I hate to break in here, but your staff is telling us a vote has been called, and we are being robbed of our quality time with you. I have so much that I would love to talk to you about. Any final thoughts, sir?
Well, this is fun. And by the way, I want
Absolutely.
to thank you guys for what you do. You guys do a great job.
yeah.
We're very appreciative.
I can't let you go without saying, I read a quote, how big a person is how they treat the little people. And anytime Senator Scott comes up here, he thanks everybody. He's always so nice. I don't know if he actually has a mean bone in his body. And it's been a pleasure to work with you since you've been up here.
Yeah, you have a great team of people. But
No,
the
thank
Senate, the Capitol's full of great people.
Yeah,
It really
exactly.
is.
Just a little anecdote. I mean, Senator Scott came in here and before we even sat down, started asking me questions.
Oh, yeah.
The roles were reversed.
Yeah,
So
it's
it
fun.
was
Don't you
really
like?
nice.
Everybody's got a story, and their history is fun.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks for giving us
you.
these few extra seconds. And Senator, last thing I have to say is thank you for being the elephant in the room.
All right. It's nice to be here.
If you'd like to hear more conversations like the one we just had with Senator Rick Scott, Sophie, what could they do?
Like and subscribe.
That will just pop that right up next time an episode comes out.
No, we have to redo that. It was
Why?
so bad.
It's so good.
That was bad.
Let's even leave this part in.
No.
All right, it's in. If you're continuing to listen, you get this exclusive information. The Elephant in the Room is brought to you under the direction of U.S. Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming. Let me name some of the members of our team here. Arjun Modi, Carly Rapp, Elena Seiler. Soon, you will all be famous. Thanks for listening, and until next time, this has been The Elephant in the Room.